get the show on the road, man.
Yeah, this was it's been a long time since we did it in English, right? When was the last time?
I think the last time was David Allen.
Yeah, David. Yeah.
It's the second one.
Half a year or something. Yeah. Anyway, well, today Paul Rulkens is in the studio. We're going to talk about high performance. But before we go there, a short shout out to our sponsors, TotalSeat.nl. If we're talking about high performance, doing massages, does it have anything to do with high performance according to you?
If you like it, then it's absolutely high performance.
I read I'm a big fan of Robin Sharma, and he advises to go to a massage, to do a massage 3 times a week, because it should unleash all the endorphins and stuff and makes you happier, makes you more productive. Anyway, Total Seat is like a massage tool. Is that the word?
Massage chair. Massage
supply.
system.
Yeah,
Let's call it a massage system.
Guys.
Sounds fancy. Yeah.
Shout out to Total Seat, who makes it all possible that we can talk about high performance here. But it definitely helps to perform better, being more relaxed, more. You've been in the chair twice today.
Yeah, before the first podcast, in between this one, so it helps me relax. And I kind of agree, man. Massage is something that everybody should do more often. Definitely.
And our second sponsor is Gymbox, who cuts freight containers, like sea containers, in half, and makes them in a perfect personal training spot, like a gym. It's like a
mobile gym.
Mobile gym.
Yeah.
Personalized mobile gyms, and it's an awesome concept where they deliver these gyms to police forces, fireman forces,
personal trainers,
and defense. Military forces. Yeah, well, I have to get into the English, Paul. This is your fault, Paul. This is your fault, Paul. We have to do it in English. But so Gymbox is a proud sponsor of Eindbazen, and go check that out. And let's talk high performance. Paul, welcome in the studio.
Excellent. You look happy and satisfied, so it seems that the products are working well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I feel happy.
Yeah, I feel happy.
Quite satisfied as well.
Too.
So yeah, that's working.
Cool. Is high performance? There are a lot of definitions for it, but I think in the main concept, it's about being happy and being satisfied, right?
Happy and satisfaction is extremely important for high performance. When I look at the definition for high performance, for me, it's always about being at the top of the things that you really care for. So I always say, are you in the top 10% of your professional field or business field? Does it make you happy? And then it looks like you are operating at a high performance level.
Yeah.
Are we operating at a high performance level? Are we in the top 10 of what we do?
In podcasting, yeah.
In Dutch podcasting, maybe.
In Dutch podcasting.
On a good day.
On a good day.
No, I truly believe that I feel we're the number one in personal development, 100%.
Almost definitely. In Holland.
I truly believe that the field that I want to be the number one in is storytelling. Speaking is still a long way to go, but that's okay. I have a long-term plan for that. And I think one of the most beneficial things in high performance is realistic planning and having giving yourself. I love this concept, the concept of 20 years instead of 1 year goals, 3 year goals. Now, what are you going to do in 20 years? And I always had a hard time finding out for myself what that would be as a young, just going after money, career-wise, and doing all kinds of stuff that other people wanted me to do instead of myself. But I truly believe that I know what I want to do in 20 years, and that path of 20 years ahead, it's I look forward to walk on it. For you,
what I want to do in 20 years?
Yeah, do you have a 20-year vision?
Yes, I do. Actually, it's one of the things that guides my life the most. Thinking about future goals, having goals, a big impact on the way you spend your time and energy, I think. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely. I've thought about my long-term goals, and that helps me greatly. I like the thing, we do a regular tip right before the podcast. You said something about writing down your 10 most important goals every day. I think that is, when it comes to the way you spend your time and energy, one of the biggest performance hacks you can do. Mm-hmm. Because the moment you do, all kinds of old hardware kicks in, and that allows you to move towards your goals because, well, that's what you're programmed to do. And if you don't have any goals, you see the exact opposite because people don't know where to put their time and energy, so there's no real focus. and then it gets sort of dispersed. But the moment you say, no, I want to go over there, your brain can't help but try and figure out how to get there. It kind of translates everything into the objective, but also the instrument and the obstacles, and it helps you puzzle out how to get there. But in order to activate that, you need to write them down. So yeah, definitely.
So that brings us to the next question. You just told us you write down goals every morning. You're 10. What are Paul Rulkens' goals? You want to share them?
Yeah, I can share a couple of goals. Usually when I do this exercise, the 10-goal exercise, it's a mix of personal and professional goals. And if I look at my business, where I want to go, my vision, and you mentioned goals, it starts with a vision. I also have a 10 or 20 years vision. Typically, if I look at vision, is what is it I want to achieve, but especially what is it no longer in my life. It's also about subtracting, taking out stuff. And if I look at my goals, a couple of my goals, one goal is the expansion of my business, because I enjoy working all over the world. So I have an expansion goal in my goal list. The other goal is to write another book. And the reason is that I found that if you write a book, it will help you codify your knowledge. I work a lot with clients. You codify some knowledge, and that will help you also to teach the knowledge. So that's a second goal. A third goal is physical. Get in shape. Get in shape. And how do I know when I get in shape? That is when I have high energy level on a consistent basis. And whenever I see I don't have any high energy level, then you see my performance also deteriorate. So it's a physical part as well. So that's a third one, and another one is the expansion of my business in settings like this, in a podcast, a long podcast, which in my opinion is a very unique way of engaging an audience. And I've never done a long podcast the way you envision it.
Oh, this is a first.
Yeah, absolutely. From that
Interesting.
perspective.
So trick question there. Usually what I see when people set goals, especially entrepreneurs, they set goals of the things that are missing most in their lives at the moment. So how about your physical energy and that level? Is that something that is missing in your lifestyle at the moment?
There are times that I'm not high in energy. And what it tells me is that there's something in my life which should be taken away to ensure that I am high in energy, especially when life comes at you at a very, very fast pace, when you're very busy. What I see is that my mental and physical state is not always at a high performance. So my goal for this year is to organize myself that I maintain a high physical energy level, but the other way is to move quickly to the state of high energy as well, because we all drop out of the state, but the speed in which you move back to the state, that is what high performance is all about.
Interesting.
Is it the flow state that you're talking about?
From a mental perspective, it's a flow state. In the flow state where everything connects, and sometimes when I write, then when I'm in the flow state, all of a sudden it's easy. It becomes natural. You move quickly. When I speak and I'm in the flow state, I speak with conviction, with power. Words come naturally to me. So that's typically the flow state you like to have, especially when things are important.
I like what you said in the beginning about your goals, that they don't necessarily have to be what you want to achieve, but also what you might want to detract from your life. I've had some discussions in this podcast about goal setting, and the popular opinion, but that might also be in line with your statement that the majority might be wrong, is that you should also always do positive goal setting, which I always found curious, because if my goal is to spend less time in traffic jams, why not just say that I want to spend less time in traffic jams because traffic jams suck, and that can be a goal.
True. Here's the thing. I think you need to make a distinction between the goal itself and the way to achieve the goal. And I agree, a goal should be a positive goal. This is what I want to be, this is what I want to have, this is where I want to be. But the way to get there, the road ahead, that is typically what we call, what is it that we need to take out of our lives in order to achieve that goal. And this is, the technical term is that the via negativa. In other words, what is it that you don't do in order to achieve your goal? I'll give you an example. If your goal is being healthy, full of energy, being fit, for many of us, it's simply avoiding smoking, or to avoid drinking, or to avoid high sugar content.
Yeah.
So taking out stuff is much easier than adding stuff. And that's what I mean with goal setting. Often the goal should be positive, but the way to achieve the goal should be either to avoid or to purge behaviors which do not help, or what we call strategic quitting. Focus on the things that truly help to go to the next step, instead of focusing on the things which are okay but are not the best use of your time.
Yeah.
I find that one, particularly that last one, is very interesting. So strategic quitting is basically about the expenditure of time.
True.
Because this is a tendency I've noticed with myself, but I think other people battle with this as well. There's this phenomenon where you can feel where you don't really want to do the thing that you need to do, but you want to feel productive at the same time. So you start doing stuff that sort of has value, but doesn't really represent the next step towards your goals. And I heard a great term for this. It's called fuck around-itis. where you're procrastinating, but you're covering it with a sense of value by doing something that at least has some benefit.
Right.
And what you're saying is eliminate all that stuff and just do the shit that needs to be done.
It's building on what you say. Here's the thing about high performance. Your ability to strategically quit equals your ability to massively succeed. And what it means is strategic quitting is to shift your activities from good activities to the best activities. Good activities to the best activities. And the thinking is you have to let go in order to reach out. So you need to let go of good activities and shift your focus to the best activities in order to take the next step when it comes to achieving your goals. This is connected in the end to time, because time is the most important resource that we have. Right? We can get more of it, we can stop it. And at the beginning of the day, everyone starts with 40 minutes. So strategic quitting is about the highest and best use of your time. And once you understand this concept, also an entrepreneur as a professional, highest and best use of time, then it's possible to slowly chip away all the stuff which is not the highest and best use of your time. And what is left is the stuff that is really helping you to achieve your goals.
I can imagine. Although I think this is also pretty hard to do, because how do you determine what is relevant, what's the best thing to do versus what's good to do? Because, well, it's, first of all, kind of subjective. It requires logical reason, but most of our reasoning is emotional. So what are maybe techniques or concepts that you have learned to try and determine which goals are best for you to move on? So which activities serve you the best, given that it's not always rational decision making.
Right. we are emotional creatures in the end. Now, when it comes to decision making, if you talk about which activities will help me most, the first step is always is clarity, being very clear about what you want to achieve, clarity about your goals. And what I often see, we call this the Columbus syndrome, right? When Columbus set sail to the Americas, he didn't know where he was going. When he arrived there, he didn't know where he was, and when he returned to Spain, he didn't know where he has been. And that's where what you see often with people, teams, and organizations. They suffer from the Columbus syndrome. They don't know where they are, haven't got a clue where they're going, and are in the dark of where they have been. So that's the first step: overcome the Columbus syndrome and be very clear. This is what I want to achieve. Yeah, and typically that what helps is first make a vision. 10 or 20 years from now, this is where I want to be. But then translate it into a goal. And these are the 10 or 15 goals that I want to achieve a half year or a year from now. Because a vision without goals is hope, and hope is not a strategy. So that's
hope
step number one.
Is the first step towards disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope is not a strategy. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is the highest and best use of your time. So once you got those goals, what is the highest and best use of your time? And if you want to know the highest and best use of your time, you need to look at three things. First of all, the activities you're skilled at. Are you competent? The second thing is, are you passionate about the activities? And the third thing is, do the activities add value to other people? Yeah, because in the end, creating value is what goal achieving is all about, creating value for other people. So you need all three. You need competence, you need passion, you need value creation. And if you miss one of those three, it's not the highest and best use of your time. I'll give you an example. If you're skilled and passionate, but you don't create value for other people, you got a hobby. Yeah? If you are passionate, you create value for other people, but you're not skilled, then you are an amateur. And if you are skilled, create value for other people, but you don't have a passion, then you simply have a job, right? And once you have a job, it's not possible to have high performance. You need to be very passionate about what you do. So the very simple approach, the highest and best use of your time, simply look at all the things that you do or could do, what you're skilled at, are passionate about, and create value for other people. Pick those 3 and eliminate, delegate, outsource everything else. And that's the practical approach of making that happen.
I like it. I think it's very hard as well, but not in the well. Yeah, I like what you're saying about having goals and, like you said, delegating, outsourcing, and eliminating the rest. Let's start at the last one, the elimination of goals. If you delegate something, well, at least it's getting done and it's still part of the plan. If I outsource it, same story. But if I eliminate it, I'm maybe killing darlings. And I found it in my own life, but also when talking to other people about this kind of thinking, that's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Got any tips on how to do that better?
Yeah. If you talk about elimination, what you need to realize is the worst use of your time is not to be inefficient, but the worst use of your time is to do things which shouldn't be done in the first place, to become excellent at something irrelevant. And I make the connection to what you say about darlings. Often, what happens in the past, we have grown accustomed to doing stuff, things we are very skilled at, it creates value, so we are perfectly comfortable, but it will not help us to take the next step. What has got us here will no longer get us there. Now, if you want to kill your darlings, it's a very conscious process. It's not something that comes by itself. And often one technique I always use with teams or clients is a technique we call zero-based thinking. And what is zero-based thinking? It's actually starting with a blank sheet. And it asks the question, knowing what I now know right now, which activities that I'm engaged in, wouldn't I start if I could do it all over again?
Very nice.
Yeah, knowing what I know now, which activities I'm engaged in right now, wouldn't I start if I could do it all over again? Yeah. And once you start to list these activities, then you immediately got the elimination list.
Yeah, there you have it.
This is what we need to stop. And I'll give you an example. We did a little exercise with a client of mine. They had a long client list, and that was interesting. And what they found in the client list is, did this little exercise, they found in the client list the 80-20 rule. 80% of all the benefits or revenue or margins, they come from 20% of the clients. It's a power law. We see that everywhere. But the other thing they also found was that 80% of the headaches also came from 20% of those clients. And those 20% were different 20%. There was the bottom clients, right? Little margin, hardly any revenue, but create a lot of headache. So what they did, elimination, they eliminated the bottom 20% of their clients. And they fire them. You can fire clients, right?
Yeah.
If you run a business, you can fire clients. Or if that's a bit too radical, you can introduce them to the competition. That's also fine. But they fired the bottom 20% of the clients. And all of a sudden, they created time and energy and money to help their best clients and find even better clients. So this is their application of strategic quitting.
Yeah. And how does that go for strategic quitting? I mean, I guess within companies, you often have teams that have been practicing their practices for a long while. There's a structure, there's a tradition, there's a whole culture around doing the things they have always done in that similar way.
The old way.
Yeah, in the old way. That's the word. Yeah, thanks. So how about that? How do you, because we are humans of habits, right? And habitual humans. That's probably the
correct.
one. So how to change without getting people stressed out, burned out, and
The fastest way, if you work in teams which work with routines, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with routines. Routines, they serve a purpose, but also for a team, it's true. What has got you here will no longer get you there. So sometimes you have to break through routines in order to take the next step. One of the most interesting approaches is to take a different approach to what we call delegation. We tend to think delegation, it's management, give work to someone else. But that's not what I mean with delegation. If you look at high performance delegation, what it means is to give something which is work for you to someone else for whom it is play in a team. So something which is work for you, give to someone else for whom it is play. And once you start doing that, all of a sudden, people start to play. And people who play are very effective and high performance people. So from that perspective, delegation is an interesting approach. It starts with the question, what is it that I like to do? And the same question asked to other people, what is it that you like to do? Yeah, and then start to organize your team, that the team moves to high performance. I give an example. I used to work in an environment where we had a program called SAP. Are you familiar with SAP?
Yeah, it's fun software. Everybody loves SAP.
Everyone
Yeah.
Well, I was not a fan of SAP. Nothing to do with the software, but it was clueless and incompetent, right? Every time I needed to beg for a new password when I needed to do something with SAP. So doing something in SAP was a painful thing for me. It took me hours. Now in my team, I had someone who was totally in love with SAP. So delegation is easy. What we did is she would do all my SAP work because she could do in 2 minutes what took me 2 hours. And I could build cool Excel spreadsheets because that's what I like to do. Right? And this is what delegation is all about.
I like it because I have a little decision tree I use when I delegate. It's usually when something costs me more than an hour, I should start thinking about delegation. And I usually go more self-centered, like, well, is there someone in my team that can probably do this in less time? Let's start there. Or is there something that has more time available? Let's do that. But I like the perspective of turning it around. Who would find this the most fun? I'm going to add that one.
Absolutely.
Because I think that gets the job done way more fast.
Absolutely. The trick here is if you want to have more delegation in a team, the trick is always to start yourself. And that's a general rule for leadership. If you want to see more of a certain behavior in a team, start with the behavior yourself. And if you want to do delegation well, you have to realize life, you have no problem to get what you want in life if you first give others what they want in life. Yeah? Life is more like a Chinese takeaway than a Michelin star restaurant. Because if you go to a Michelin star restaurant, you go to a restaurant, you eat, and then you pay. And that's what restaurants do. If you go to a Chinese takeaway,
you pay and then you eat.
Yeah, you go to the restaurant, you pay and then you eat. So the sequence, the steps are the same, but the sequence is different. And that's also true with delegation. If you want to do delegation well in a team, start with the question, this is what I like to do, can I help someone? And once you
pay first.
You pay first. And when you start helping someone, which is not work for you because you enjoy doing it, then all of a sudden you can return that question and rephrase it. What is it that you like to do, and how can we do delegation well?
First you have to sacrifice, then you get the gains.
Correct.
I see. Interesting. All right. I think that's important in teams to understand the way that works when it comes to, like I said, delegation. Make sure that people do the things that they like the most, and it gets done a lot faster. Because when I delegate, I've sometimes stuffed jobs down people's throats where like I wouldn't want to do this myself, so I'm just going to give this to someone else, which is basically bad leadership if you look at it from that perspective. So yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Before we go on to some applications, techniques, because I've looked at your work. I have a lot of questions, but the first thing I always find very interesting is when you talk about preeminence, high performance, raising the bar, people who are very into that stuff, I always get that they have a certain sense of urgency that other people seem to be missing. And I'm very curious what the root is of your personal sense of urgency, because the fact that you gathered all this knowledge is simply a solution to something you want to create for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What is it that that makes you focus on getting the most out of your time?
Yeah, I think it's also part of my history. If you look at where I started, where I come from, I'm originally trained as a chemical engineer. That was my profession. And when I was done with my training, I was young, I was broke, so I needed to earn money. So I started to work in operations, which is build large chemical facilities, run large chemical facilities all over the world. And the first 10 years of my career, I did what engineers love to do, which is to solve problems which do not talk back. That's our hobby. We love that. We don't like that icky stuff with people talking back. No. We love to solve problems which do not talk back. But after about 10 years, I realized what has got me here will no longer get me there. So continue on this road will no longer bring me to the goals I wanted to achieve, which is to grow also in a corporate organization. And then I became fascinated by one question. The question is, what is it that the most successful people, teams, and organizations do differently if they want to achieve success in the laziest way possible? In the laziest way possible. And the reason that I asked myself that question is not that I'm a lazy person. I mean, not compared to others. I guess sometimes I'm lazy too. But the reason is, once you are lazy, once you want to get things done in the easiest way possible, all of a sudden you have time and energy left to do all other kind of cool stuff, like hanging out with you on an occasion like this, right? So that became my magnificent obsession. And then I realized there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of ideas out there about this subject. So I studied the ideas, practiced the ideas, kept what was working. I'm an engineer, so I keep what was working. And then all of a sudden I realized, if you truly want to internalize ideas, the trick is to teach it to other people. Right? If you can teach it to other people, then you got it internalized.
5% by listening, 10% by reading, 95% by teaching others.
Teaching others.
I get it.
So I started to teach it to other people. Hey, this is how you achieve goals, delegation, time management, productivity, etc. And I was so successful in my corporate environment that I was quickly brought to the dark side of a corporation, which is corporate headquarters. So I got a job at corporate headquarters, a company called DSM. And a big chemical company, global, and my job was to build a high-performance culture, which is how do you make successful people, teams, and organizations even more successful, which is an absolutely fascinating subject, because this is no longer about working harder, but it's about a different perspective, different mindsets, and it is especially about strategic quitting. Stopping with behavior, stopping with activities which do not cover the high performance individual or person. So that became my fascination. I did this a couple of years. I tested a lot of ideas in various environments. So that was a beautiful playground for me. And about 5 years ago, I decided to start my own company. I realized also outside this company there are many successful people I can help. So that's the basis of I would always say, my obsession. My obsession is, how can I take the next step in the easiest way possible.
Nice. I like it. You said something that got me thinking right now, because the thing you need to do before you can strategically quit is obviously you got to have the goals, but you also need clear priorities. And I've experimented with several ways to try and prioritize and then do the execution. Which are ways to, let's say you have the old way of coming to priorities. For example, you can go Eisenhower on it, and you can fill in the matrix, and you have these 4 quadrants. Something might be urgent and important. Who's ever read a management book probably knows about this. But it's also, it's not the way, because if that was the way, it would have worked. And I see definitely not succeed a lot of times as well. So when it comes to proper priorities, what's a way to go about this?
Yeah. Also here, the contrarian approach is to look at it from a different way, and look at it from, if you talk about goal setting, goals are very positive thing. This is what I want to achieve. This is what I do if I want to set priorities. I do what I call a pre-mortem. And what is a pre-mortem? It's the opposite of a post-mortem. What a post-mortem is, I have a goal, I have a project, I want to achieve something, and at a certain point in time, it fails. I look back, it failed, what happened? Pre-mortem is different. You set a goal, and then you imagine a year from now, you have failed so miserably that the Wall Street Journal is making a front-page article about your ignominious failure. Right?
Massive fuck up.
Massive. What happened? And once you start doing that for yourself or for your team, you list the reasons why. Well, we were not able to build a high-performance team, or too fast in the market. And this list, that becomes your priority. Because these are the obstacles. And so you got a list. This is the priority. And then the next trick is to build a system or process to overcome these obstacles.
I get it.
And once you got that, you got your priorities, you get going.
Wow, it's like an inverse prioritizing.
Correct.
because if you look at prioritizing, for example, if you go to getting things done, the way to go about this is to imagine great success.
Correct.
And what you're saying is imagine great failure and try to determine what you need to do to prevent that and make those your priority.
Correct. Correct.
That's interesting.
Here's the thinking. Between your vision and achieving your goal, there's always an obstacle.
Yes.
And it can be multiple obstacles, but there's always an obstacle. The bigger and more ambitious the goals, the bigger the obstacle. The good news is if you face big obstacles, you're working on good goals. If you don't face obstacles, you're not working on big goals anyway. So that's the good news. Now, the trick if you want to achieve your goals is to design a system process to overcome these obstacles.
Basically a workflow.
And that's the workflow, yeah.
Sort of a guideline to make sure that if you put effort in, it goes to the right things.
Correct, correct. And then you got your priority.
Yeah, like I said, it's a different approach than from what you're used to, or at least what you're regularly taught. So I like that regard. I'm at a loss here for a bit. I had a thought just now and I lost it by what you said.
How to set up the right structure to handle this? Is there a roadmap? Do you have an internal roadmap for constructing these kind of structures and solutions?
The way I go about and for myself, but also when I work with clients, I teach them the way to do it. I look at three areas when it comes to goal achieving. I look at clarity, I look at focus, and I look at execution. Now, if you talk about clarity, we already discussed this. Hey, what's the vision and what does it mean for the goals, right? So that's overcome the Columbus syndrome. Then, if you talk about focus, my system is also always based on what we're going to face, which is the valley of death. The valley of death. And the valley of death describes the energy and enthusiasm between setting a goal in your head and achieving that goal in the real world. Because initially, it's very high. But then when you start working on the goal, it goes down and down and down. At a certain point in time, it reaches a plateau, low energy for yourself and for your team. The trick is you need to overcome that plateau. And only at the end, when success becomes inevitable, energy will go through the roof. So if you talk about a system, the system needs to be designed in such a way that you overcome the valley of death. Overcome this plateau, because that's where the graveyard of great ideas that's the grave of great ideas. It's where procrastination happens. Right? That's where millions of great initiatives die. So the system is knowing that we're going to face the valley of death. What are going to be the biggest obstacles, the pre-mortem, and what is it that we need to do in a system or process to overcome these obstacles? Now, that can be two things. That can be the classical system or process when you have a project or IT or SAP, whatever it is. But the most important part is behaviors. Yeah, which behaviors do we need to overcome the valley of death? Yeah? And the reason is you will never get the new results that you want from the existing behaviors that you like. You never get the new results that you want from the existing behaviors that you like, because the results you have are connected with the behaviors that you show.
Yeah. I think that ties into Einstein's what's the definition of stupid?
But the existing behaviors trying to get a new. So you need to change behaviors. And that is the big secret of high-performance teams, organizations, and leaders. They understand that if you want to achieve something new, you need to build new behaviors for yourself and for your team. So what are the new behaviors that you need to build? Yeah? But especially, what are the new behaviors that you need to stop? Stop doing stuff. Yeah. Right? Behaviors should mask your strength. So that's the other part of the system. So then you got the focus done. So you got clarity, you got focus, and then you talk about execution. Execution is about how do we organize ourselves that every single day we take a step towards our goals. How do we eat our frog? How do we put the dead rat on the table? Which is talking about the big issue instead of fooling around. That's what you see. So what is it that we need to do in a system or structure to continue moving towards our goal and cross the valley of death? So these are the three elements: clarity, focus, and execution. And that is then a system, an execution system, which helps to achieve big goals.
Interesting. I found my point back, what I was thinking about when we were talking about the pre-mortem. One of the things that the inverse goal setting does is it kind of creates problems. And one of the things that I found in my preparation for this podcast that might tie into that, might be a solution to it, but I never labeled as such, is serendipity. Could you go into what that exactly meant? Because it was the first time I encountered it from a performance perspective. What is serendipity, and how could it help you to overcome, for example, the obstacles you face when you think about, hey, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. For me, the definition of serendipity is good things happen when you are on your way to achieve your goals. Yeah? So with every door closing, another window opens. That's typically the metaphor that people use for serendipity. Now, serendipity is going to be an essential part if you want to cross the valley of death. Because generally speaking, you see it in plans. We have this plan, we want to go from A to B, and strategic planning, that's a straight line, right? We start here and then we move there. But that's a corporate fantasy. In reality, it's very different, and you face all kind of obstacles. Now, if you want to make maximum use of serendipity, there are a couple of secrets to make that happen. The first secret to do serendipity or engage in serendipity's behavior, is to move. Move and do a lot of stuff. Test a lot of stuff. Yeah? So motion beats meditation every time. When it comes to serendipity, motion beats meditation every time. You need to be moving, constantly moving, and see what happens. And based on the feedback, adjust your course.
Action trumps intention.
Action trumps intention. Yeah, I think that's another way of doing that. So how do you set yourself up where every day you move, you test, see what works, keep what works, and let go of things that don't work?
So basically what you're saying is serendipity is your ability to spot opportunities to move over obstacles or use something as an maybe unintended instrument to go towards your goals. And what you're saying is you can spot these things by moving forward, or at least moving in a direction, because information will change, the variables will alter, and that's when they pop up. And you can probably, cash out on them.
Absolutely, and let's make this more granular. How do you do this? Here's the trick. You need to ask yourself two questions. And the first question is, what is working which should not be working?
Interesting, yeah.
And the second question, what is not working which should be working? And this is how you create serendipity from that perspective. But that's only one part of the course.
Could you illustrate this with an example?
I give you an example. In my business, in my business, it's about one of the things I do is speaking. I speak a lot, and when I started speaking, I had ideas. These are concepts. I'm going to share the concepts. Some of the concepts I share with you. So I did it. I was successful. That's fine. But at a certain point in time, I thought, what is it that people take away from what I say? That wasn't it. What is actually working which shouldn't be working? That was my question. So I started to ask people. And then what people told me is, you frame things very well, but the takeaway are the 2 or 3 practical techniques that I can use tomorrow. Hey, that's interesting. That's interesting. So my professional speaking business then changed into, I give you the concept, I give you the awareness, but I especially focus on giving you the techniques to make the change happen. So that was a revelation for me. Clearly that's working. So that's an example of that.
Yeah, and by spotting that, you could make changes in what you're doing in order to progress further towards your goal.
Absolutely. But that's only one side of the coin. If you talk about serendipity,
it sounds like rather opportunistic, sort of.
Yeah,
but you create your own opportunities by moving forward. Yeah,
you need to move. You can't be serendipitous behind a desk, right?
No,
that's impossible. So you need to move. But that's only one part of the coin. The other part of the coin, if you want to do serendipity well, the trick is to build a habit of developing options. Yeah, always develop options, because if you don't have options, you're dealing with a fact. So what's the point of doing things? If you got only one option, you have a problem. Got 2 options, you got a dilemma. But only when you have 3 options or more, you truly have freedom. And what happens when you try to cross the valley of death? When you hit a wall, you can always go to the next option, to the next option, to the next option. Yeah. So life is about developing options, and that is what serendipity is all about.
Yeah, through the elimination of options, you might open up other opportunities again.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So things become hairy and pear-shaped, typically in strategic plans and goals, when all of a sudden you end up with only one route to solution. Oops.
Yeah, that's bad.
And then you need to think about, if I need to develop different options. What do I do? What do I do? And so option development is the second part of it, of serendipity.
Yeah.
Isn't this the big problem in if you look at startups? Everything is optional. Everything is an idea, and everything can be explored. While larger companies get into this structure of this is how we've done things always, and old patterns, and we can't look at new ideas and stuff. Is this a pattern you see a lot?
Yeah, I think that's a clear distinction between startups and more mature organizations. I give you an example. When mature organizations do innovation, often they do a lot of things and see what sticks, right? What is successful, and they put all their resources on the few things that are successful. When they do it right, often they do it wrong. Because instead of portfolio thinking, I do 100 things, I expect 99 things to fail, but the one thing I invest in doing more of it. They do project thinking, so they want all those 100 things to be successful. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not successful in those 100 things, I have failed, right? And that diminishes, that dilutes resources, that dilutes energy. So this is how big companies fail to innovate.
Yeah,
not looking at the winners. Now the problem with startups is that they tend to fall in love with their product instead of falling in love with their client.
Yeah.
So
guilty.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought, man.
Yeah. So you wake up, you got this brilliant product, this brilliant idea.
Everybody needs this.
Everyone is going to use it, and there will be a massive scale up.
Yeah.
Without thinking, well, who's my client, and how can I fall in love with my client to do something which will improve the condition of the client. Yeah. So that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah. And I like the saying that everybody wants innovation, but nobody wants to change.
Right.
And I truly see that with larger companies, or it's not fancy to say people, but in general, older employees, older management, the gray people on top are hard learners sometimes, and especially I think in this era of innovation. It seems that for some reason a lot of companies don't do very well because they don't say goodbye to the people that brought them initially there, like you're saying. Huh? Is this something that you see? You work with Ubers, like the Ubers in the world, and the new start. I know you probably work with more companies. Do you see that a company like Uber is aware of this and take proper action on it?
Let me build on what you say, and that experience. People who have experience might not be as agile.
Yeah.
And I would challenge that. What I see is another thing is often you see structures which are no longer agile, where people adapt their behavior to the structure. Mm-hmm. So even when you bring experienced people out of the structure into a different structure, you see a different type of behavior, because in the end, people show the behavior which is being rewarded.
Yeah.
So I think therefore it's not the age or the experience which limits, but it is the structure which limits.
Yeah.
So if you build a new structure, you'll get a new set of behaviors, and you get new results. So that's one thing. Then building on your question, if I look at customers I work at, what I see is that the most successful customers I work with, they understand the innovation dilemma, and they have a couple of habits which will help them to take the next step. One of the habits is that they, and I already said it, they never fall in love with a product, they fall in love with their client. So the client is always the focal point of everything they do. What's their client? For example, one of my clients, in order to make client focus the core of their business, had a wall of clients. So every time you would walk into their company, they had pictures of actual clients, people. Yeah, not logos, but pictures. We work for these people, right? These people, and that creates energy. That creates focus.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The second thing is that the most successful organizations which are doing this well, innovation, high performance, taking next step, they understand that the majority is always wrong. When it comes to high performance, the majority is always wrong. So what it means is that every single business you're working in works with norms, works with standards. For example, a bank standard has people bring money to the bank, and then they give the money to other people, and they keep a share. That's a normal standard of the business. If they want to innovate, the trick is not to build a new Tesla, or a new iPad. That's way too difficult. Innovation is about breaking norms and breaking standards. Yeah, doing things differently in a marketplace. I give the example of IKEA. If you look at IKEA, the standard for furniture was I build furniture for my client, I bring the furniture. And then they decided to break the norm and standards. And no, we don't build it anymore. We give a package.
Yeah.
Right?
You build it yourself.
Build it yourself. And that's breaking norms and standards. So they didn't invent a new Tesla, but they broke the norms and standards of an organization. And that's what you often see with very effective, innovative companies. They are able to understand norms and standards and ask themselves, how can we break the norms and break the standards in our industry or professional field?
Yeah, so what you're saying is a cultural legacy doesn't really depend on the people that do it. It's more of the, the collective of the organization that does things a certain way. And
Correct.
the moment you start changing as a group,
Correct.
the individuals will follow, so they're not, outdated at all.
No.
The moment the environment changes, they will just update as well.
Correct, and I think that's a huge opportunity if you talk about leadership and high performance leadership. High performance leadership is to create a success environment. Right? It's about creating a success environment, and that's what high performance leaders in the end do. And they understand this is the environment. How can I create a success environment where the behaviors that I like to see are being rewarded, and the behaviors I don't like to see are being punished. Right. Yeah. And this is how you change the culture of an organization, build a high-performance culture. Now, maybe building on what we said earlier, we said about successful clients. We talked about successful clients. What do they do? The third thing that they do is they understand, are they playing a mad genius game or are they playing a mastermind game? And that's a very different distinction you need to make. Now, what's a mad genius game? A mad genius game is a game where your success depends on being the smartest, being brilliant. Yeah, those are mad geniuses. And if you operate in such an environment, you operate with other Einsteins, right? I give an example. If you talk about investment banking, typically, smart people go to investment banking. If you are a startup and you decide I'm going to build a new search engine, you will compete with Google, right? So all of a sudden you play a mad genius game. You need to out-Google Google. And that's a bad idea, right? So that's a mad genius game. The only way to win is to be smarter. Now, the strategic high-performance mastermind game is different. The way to win there is not to lose. Don't do stupid stuff. This is how you win. This is how you win.
Example?
So if you look at startups, typically the most successful startups are aware of not doing stupid stuff. So, for example, they will never develop a product or test a product or develop an idea where their entire life depends on this idea being successful. Put all the eggs in one basket.
Guilty.
That's very honest.
Paid the price for it.
A little too late, but hey.
So that's typically an example. Which game are you playing? Are you playing a mad genius game or a strategic mastermind game? And once you understand I'm playing the strategic mastermind game, your chance of being successful is very high if you simply avoid doing stupid stuff. So and that's again we come back to what is high performance all about. High performance is about avoiding stupid stuff.
Does that tie into the red ocean, blue ocean philosophy?
Absolutely. There's a direct connection between the two.
Could you explain the red ocean, blue ocean?
For me, the red ocean, blue ocean ties in. What is your competition? Are you moving to a marketplace which is crowded, where you have to be exceptional in order to be heard? Or do you create a little niche for yourself, move into a marketplace where you are the big fish in a small pond? And the big fish in a small pond is usually the most successful way of innovation. So that's what this is all about. So that's my interpretation of blue ocean, red ocean. So it's a different type of game you're playing. And that may be my fourth point. If you look at the most successful organizations here, they have a clear understanding that achievement is a function of two things, which is luck and which is skill. Achievement is luck plus skill. And we guilty, tend to overestimate our skill
The skill bit of it, yeah.
and underestimate luck. Right?
But how does that tie into the fact that how does this translate to English? You sort of set the board for good fortune. If you do the right things, then you create the setting for something extraordinary lucky to be there. For example, if you buy any, there's a big customer. They just said goodbye to one of their the guys that supplied them in for example, the trainings that they do, and all of a sudden there's an option for you, which is very lucky. But you couldn't jump into that if you hadn't done a lot of stuff before that.
Correct.
So you kind of create your own luck, is what I'm trying to say.
Correct. You're using your skill set to make use of the lucky things that happen. Because if you've never engaged the big customer, then the opportunity wouldn't be there.
Or you don't have the product
Correct.
that you need to fill the gap that all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
and that's a very good point. Now the thing if you think about that skill and luck, and I give you the example of a casino. Imagine you are a roulette player, which in the end is a game based on luck. It's pure chance. You cannot improve as a roulette player. There's no such thing as skill building as a roulette player. It is a chance thing. Yeah. Now, if you look at a chess grandmaster, that is a game where skill plays a huge part, but not 100%. Even in chess, if it is a completely transparent game without any chance, because the chance is within you. Imagine the evening before you've eaten a spicy Thai food, you're not energetic and you lose the game. Yeah. So there's still a part which is luck.
Yeah.
Now here's the trick. The trick for high performance organizations is to understand what is skill, what is luck, and move to a place where the impact of skill is maximized and the impact of luck is minimized. That's the trick. So if a roulette player would come to me and say, how can I be more successful? I
Stop
would
playing
say,
roulette, man.
Yeah, stop playing roulette and start playing chess.
Yeah.
Because that's the place where your skill set will be successful.
Yeah.
So that's the fourth type of thinking. Where should I put my energy in such a way that my skill sets have the maximum effect?
All right. I like the skill part. I like the luck part, but there's also maybe the risk part, which is maybe the inverted thing of luck. One of the concepts that I learned about when we had the Colonel Swillens here, he talks a lot about VUCA.
Yeah.
Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. What are strategies? Because if you want to perform, you got to have these things on your radar. And if there are certain risks stemming from these, you might want to do something. You want to counter it. What are ways to go about risk or risk mitigation? Or
Here's the big secret of risk mitigation. The big secret is strategic quitting. That is take stuff out. Take stuff out, because that will make you much more robust, anti-fragile. Nassim Taleb wrote about it.
Is that because it reduces complexity?
It reduces complexity. I give you the health example. If you smoke and you take out smoking, all of a sudden you have significantly reduced your risk profile. Yeah? So risk is about taking out stuff. And if you think about taking out stuff, there are three areas where you need to look at to take out risk. To take out things, to take out activities. The first thing is to take out activities which have an event horizon. And event horizon, that's the term in astrophysics. If you got a black hole, that's the place in space where light is no longer able to escape the black hole. So it's the boundary between the black hole and not a black hole. Yeah? So once light enters this place, there's no way turning back. That's the event horizon. Yeah. Now the trick is, if you want to go to high performance, understand which activities do have an event horizon.
So they get binary after a while.
Exactly. So which activities are so risky that if things go wrong, there's no turning back. Yeah. For example, startup. If I move everything in this project, if this project fails, I'm out of business.
Yeah, it's all in.
Yeah, all in. Yeah. So what do you need to reduce out of your life, out of your business life, that you no longer have or minimize the activities which have an event horizon? In trading terms, they call this an uncle point. An uncle point. Yeah. So that's one thing. And for professionals, sometimes it can be in the area of health. but it can also be in the area of careers, that you take so much risk in your career. For instance, trading, you lost so much money that you take all the money you have and you put everything on red in the hope that you get it back, in the casino terms. And then and then it's very risky, but all of a sudden, at a certain point in time, it will be
gone.
black, gone. Yeah. So think about it. So that's one area, event horizon. Here's the second area. The second area is to take out behaviors which mask your strength. Take out behaviors which mask your strength. So if you want to be a high-performance individual, it's not about building new behaviors. It's about taking out behaviors which mask the strength of what you're doing. I call this kryptonite behaviors.
Oh, so they actually limit you in your ability, because masking can also be camouflaging it, which from a Machiavellian point of view might be a successful strategy every now and then.
Yes.
For example, you don't want to outshine the master.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the thing is, what masking means is you got enormous super talents, right? Everyone has enormous super talents, but everyone has a couple of behaviors. If we stop doing that stuff, all of a sudden we are much more powerful. And that's interesting when I work with high-powered executive successful leaders. They do a lot of things very well, right? But the most successful ones, they understand there are a couple of things they don't do very well. Very simple behaviors in conversations. Yes, but. The habit of the yes, but. Yeah? Because if you use the habit of the yes, but, what happens with the energy of the team, of the room, of the person you're talking to, down the drain.
Yeah.
So stop it. Go to yes and, or go to no. That's also fine.
Yeah, but you should be able to ventilate criticism. Now I get it. I'm very guilty of this one. Yeah.
Yes, but So another one behavior. It's adding too much value. Adding too much value. That's interesting, especially for leaders. Adding too much value is, imagine you're a leader and one of your employees enters your office, got a brilliant idea. And you think, this is an absolutely stunning, brilliant idea. But you are the leader, so you need to have an opinion, right? You are paid to have opinions. So what you focus is something trivial. And you say, well, a great idea, but instead of blue, make it red. Yeah. Well, think about it. What happens with the enthusiasm, energy, ownership of the person in your office? Down the drain.
Yeah.
And that's adding too much value.
Well, that kind of depends on the dynamic, because if it's obvious that that the leader is doing it to improve his own position, it's an ego thing, then it might take away. But I've had bosses as well that were genuinely enthused and added something that actually made it better, not just to market or pee on it.
That's fine.
But then it's good leadership.
That's good leadership. Yeah, definitely.
That's adding value. But adding too much value is add value which is not important for the idea or for the goal or for success.
Yeah, that's just adding value to add value for yourself.
Exactly. You see it often in meetings where leaders start to add value, and you get the summary of the summary, and everyone needs to have the summary. It's a painful process, right? So stop it. And the third one is listening to reply. There's also a thing I see often in leaders, that they don't listen to understand, but they listen to reply. So whenever they listen to people, they have a story in their head, and as soon as they hear something which connects to the story, they immediately jump in. Yeah. But listening to understand is different. You listen to what is being said, then you summarize, and you check for understanding, and then you bring your point. Something very different. Yeah. So these are three things typically, and when I work with these leaders, and I simply help them to stop this behavior, stop doing this. And once they stop doing this, all of a sudden they become 10 times more effective in the organization than what they used to do. And so that's the second point.
How much of high performance is tied into ego, if you think about this a little longer?
It's often ego which drives behaviors which mask strength. That's where.
Because at times it's a great motivator. It's a great fuel to start moving if you really want something, because you want to be the best at something. That's great for high performance. But if you look at situations like you described just now, there's an ego mechanism behind that as well, which is actually detrimental to the increase in performance.
Correct.
So how do you manage that with these? I don't know if it's right to assume this, but I think that people that end up in these positions are usually alpha individuals, which have a trait of high ego, or at least maybe a little bit overdeveloped ego. How do you deal with that?
If you want to overcome the ego, it's very simple. There are only 3 reasons why people change. The first reason is compliance. I have to do this, otherwise I will get fired. The second reason is peer pressure. Well, if you start doing this, then your neighbor's doing that too. Good results. Okay, excellent. And the third one is enlightened self-interest. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? Now, what happens in these type of processes? Number 1 and 2, peer pressure and compliance. Once you take away peer pressure and compliance, then people tend to move back to the old behavior. The reason why people change is in the end the what's in it for me. Enlightened self-interest. So if you're dealing with someone with ego, the first step is to make them understand what the impact of their behavior is on achieving their own goals.
Yeah, you got to find the right carrot.
Exactly, that's the right carrot.
Yeah.
And once you understand, wait a second, it does not help me to achieve my own goals, then you can go to the next step and start working with the individual to change that behavior. Yeah, so the trick is to connect it to their own goals. People do things for their reason, not for other people's reasons. Right?
Yeah. Is this true for everybody, for every professional, or is this just limited to certain individuals? And are there ways to get other people moving? Or is it always, no, you got to find the carrot for everybody?
In the end, people are driven with their own goals. Everyone is driven with their own goals. The people might not know it always, might not recognize it. But also it can be that people work in organizations which are perfectly aligned with their own goals. So they've never thought about their own goals because it's the organizational goals which are perfectly aligned with my values, what I want to achieve. That's also fine. So it is a personal thing, but people may not always recognize it themselves.
Interesting. I have a question. It goes back to the part where I blanked out a little, because I was thinking about what you said about creating workflows with teams to do certain things in a certain manner. And I think the main reason to do this, because a high performance, especially in teams, in my opinion, is especially about creating momentum. And maybe there, especially when you work with groups of individuals, leadership becomes very important. But maybe there are other principles that you can use to make sure that they gain traction, which is, it's not hard to get to the top. It's the hard part is staying there. So once you get to a certain speed, velocity, let's go to the velocity for Scrum teams, for example. How do you maintain velocity?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because I love what you said about, for example, moving on the piece with the biggest resistance, the frogs. Usually that unlocks the most progress.
Correct.
What are other principles that sort of make sure that you keep that flow going?
If you want to keep flow going in an organization, and high performance is not only about reaching the peak, but also staying there. That's an important part. At a certain point in time, it's no longer about the mechanics. This is how we do the meetings and the Excel sheets. No longer. It becomes part of behaviors. It turns into behaviors. You will never get the new results that you want from the existing behaviors that you like.
So we're talking about habits, basically.
Yeah, the behaviors which drive the habits. This is how we do that. And
sorry to interrupt you, but there's a difference between a behavior and a habit in your view of it?
No. The habit and the behavior to me are the same.
Okay, right. Gotcha.
Yeah,
sure.
It's more
all right.
consistent
Sorry. Yeah.
What for me the distinction is sometimes behavior you still have to work on it. I need to behave like a habit. It's already there. Like brushing your teeth. Okay, no longer any issue. Now, if you talk about building high performance habits, this is about building high performance habits. What I always do with teams, first of all, I work on the habits which mask their strength. We already mentioned a couple of those habits. But the second thing is we look at the distinctions in habits, and especially mindsets. And here are a couple of distinctions which are interesting. The first one is the distinction between owner and victim. Owner and victim. So as a team member, when I'm a victim, I tend to do two things. First of all, I say I can't because of this, and the second thing is I have to because of this, and that's a victim.
I thought feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah. Victim. Okay. Ownership. Yeah, it's about I'll find a way to make one. The famous Hannibal dictum. I'll find a way to make one. So teams, high performance teams, they tend to focus on behaviors which create ownership, and they move away from behaviors which build victimhood, right? Victimhood is deadly for any high-performance team. Yeah? So stay away from victimhood, move to ownership. So that's one type of behavior.
Small question: how do you instill ownership in a team? Because I think that's one of the challenges that every leader has.
Yep,
People
yep.
tend to maybe it might be a bias, but what I've seen on jobs is that people kind of lean towards the victim mode a little too easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Two ways of doing it. First one, role model.
Lead by example.
Lead by example. The minimum behavior you show yourself is the maximum behavior you can expect from other people.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah, so if you work in a team where ownership is low, ask yourself as a leader, what is it in my behavior which makes people think they get away with this?
So their best is your worst day.
Correct.
So your worst day has to be subpar.
Raise
Or way above. Yeah,
raise
subpar
above,
is
raise
not.
above,
Yeah, gotcha.
Absolutely. Yeah. So think about it. Role model the behavior. Every time you got a chance, role model the behavior. And here's the second thing: challenge your people. And I'll give you an example how I worked with a team recently, also team leaders to change behavior. I explained them the typically leadership behavior, which we call the monkey magnet. The monkey magnet, which is an interesting behavior that. There are employees coming to the team leader with a problem. There's a monkey. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the team leader is now the owner of the problem. Yeah. And if you think about it, then this team leader or this leader has two big issues. First of all, another problem. Yeah? And the second thing is he clearly has employees which are not able to solve problems. Uh-huh. And this is what we call a monkey magnet. The leader is a monkey magnet. They all have monkeys on their shoulder because that's the problem. The monkey jumps from one person to the other person. Now, if you want to instill ownership, you first need to create awareness. Wait a second, where are the monkeys? Yeah. And the second thing is you need to teach them different behaviors. And one of the behaviors I teach to leaders is to never leave a scene with an additional monkey on your shoulder.
You just give it back to the person.
You address the monkey. Hey, this is an interesting monkey. It's your monkey. What I expect from you is to give it thought, come back to me with 3 different solutions, and then we can decide.
Yeah. I love this.
But if you don't have that, don't bother to drop by.
No.
Yeah. So that's the monkey solution.
I've been in leadership positions as well, where people, boss, it's not working. Well, did you try turning it on and off again? No, well, let's start there.
Start there.
Yeah, because this are very easy to just, this is a problem.
Yep.
Here you go, this is now your problem.
Yeah.
And I like the 3 kinds of solutions that they can think up in advance. It's a trick I use when I delegate, because when you delegate, most people delegate to peers or in your team to maybe, well, let's call them minions. But my favorite direction to delegate is up towards leadership. But if you do that and you just come with a problem, you always leave with a problem. But the moment you come with 3 alternatives, there's a little Machiavellian thing going on there as well. If you have 3 options, you also have a favorite option, which is like your shiny apples. Like, boss, these are the options. This is very good. A very nice apple.
Absolutely.
I like it, which gives you sort of a control.
Yeah. This is how you manage your boss, right?
Yeah.
And the worst waste of time is getting a problem via email, written out in like an A4 page, and then you have to reply probably in the same kind of amount of text. So that the trick of giving 3 solutions is just the easy one. You get an email, boss, this is the problem. What should I do? 3 options.
1, 2, 3. Yeah,
That's
ABC.
And this is how you create ownership in an organization. This is what you want. So stay away from victimhood. And every time you see victim behavior, address the behavior, and say, okay, if instead of victim you put on your ownership hat, what would you do differently? And that helps people think differently. So that's one distinction I usually do for high performance teams. Here's the second one, which is: are you playing to win or playing not to lose? Are you playing to win or playing not to lose? Yeah. Organizations which are playing not to lose, they focus on the status quo. Yeah, they try not to rock the boat, make themselves very small, and hope that the status quo will continue in the future. Organizations which play to win, they are focused on making themselves obsolete. Yeah, what is it I am doing to make my own business obsolete? Because if I'm not doing it, my competitor is doing that. Yeah? So where are you playing to win? Where are you playing not to lose? Yeah. And if you think about it, you see organizations which are playing to win, but you also see a lot of organizations which are playing to lose. Typically when they try to do the legal stuff, right? the legal framework, so our business is shielded from competition. These organizations which are playing not to lose. Now, here's the problem with those organizations. They attract people who like to play not to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of ties it. That raises a question to me: what is the relationship between aggression and performance? Because I think that playing to win, being competitive, has a taste of aggression in it, and trying to maintain the status quo is very defensive. So, looking at what you know and what you've seen, is there a relationship between being aggressive and being high performance? Or is there also a way to be maybe more passive, maybe, and still do high performance? Or do you, like Microsoft, stay angry, always resonated with me somehow.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, and I come back to what you said earlier, the sense of urgency. I think the willingness to explore new frontier, to take the next step, that creates a sense of urgency, and that can be the aggression. If there's no willingness to change, do something different, take the next step, you might as well close shop. Because that's usually the end of an organization. Yeah? So always be better. Always go to the next step. Now, what is the next step? How can I make myself obsolete? I think that's the biggest question you need to ask yourself, and that creates the sense of urgency, the aggressiveness to test new things, do new things, take the next step.
You've got to aggressively try to make yourself obsolete.
Absolutely.
So you got to turn that aggression on yourself.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like what you said about if you're the kind of company that's there to just survive. These people usually do sort of like business-like fortifications, which if you look at the art of war, is one of the worst things you can do. Just stay stationary. Correct. Because everybody can maneuver on you. Everybody knows where you are. Everybody knows your strength. So it makes you very predictable.
It makes you predictable. It makes you also very fragile.
Yeah.
It's not a question if things go wrong, but the question is when it goes wrong. Right?
Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. All right. One of the things that I found very interesting when looking at your book is something that's often puzzled me, especially when I look at myself and look at my partner in crime here. Why smart people do stupid stuff. And there's a couple of things that you mentioned in your book that I knew about, but some I didn't know. It might be interesting to talk about a little bit.
Sure.
And one of the first things was the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Right. For me, that's always fascinating. If we talk about high performance, I talked about in the end, it's avoiding doing stupid stuff. That's one of the key aspects of high performance. Our mental design is not in such a way that we always think properly.
It's not optimal.
It's not optimal. And it starts with an interesting question: what's the purpose of thinking? What's the purpose of thinking?
I've listened to your TED Talk, so I won't answer. Yeah.
If you ask that question, what's the purpose of thinking? They have philosophy to achieve goals and prevent risk. Lots of things, and that's all true. If you ask that question to a brain scientist, she'll only have one answer, and she will tell us that the purpose of thinking is to stop thinking. The purpose of thinking is to stop thinking. And what it means is that thinking is a high energy activity. It takes a lot of energy to think. So whenever we think, we try to think as short as possible, and then we return to automatic pilot. Over 95% of our life, we simply run on automatic pilot. You may have recognized that when you drive a car and you realize, whoa, what did I do in the past 10 minutes? Typically on automatic pilot. Now, what happens if you run your brain on automatic pilot, you start to breathe your own exhaust fumes, myopic thinking, tunnel vision. Yeah, so you're no longer clear in thinking. And then you think that you think, but in reality, you're simply rearranging your own prejudices.
You're echoing.
You're echoing. Yeah, your own prejudices. You rearrange them. Okay, this is how it works. So
affirming yourself along the way. I'm so smart. I've got it figured out. Yeah, I get it.
And you see it in a couple of thinking biases. And what you mentioned, the Dunning-Kruger effect, is one of the thinking biases. And what the Dunning-Kruger effect tells us is the less you know about a subject, the more you think you know about a subject. The less you know about a subject, the more you think you know about a subject. I was watching the cooking channel a couple of months ago with my wife. There was this chef with those knives, those fancy Japanese knives. They were cutting carrots. So I said to Francesca, if you buy me this knife, I can be the chef too, right? Easy. And then they explained to me, if you want to become a chef, a master chef, you will get a full year of training on how to cut fruit and vegetables. Because the way you cut fruits and vegetables determines the texture, determines the taste. And that's the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. The less you know about the subject, the more you think you know about the subject. Right?
I've heard this in the sports scene where the analogy of a shed. Everybody thinks they know how to build a shed, but if you actually start building a shed, it's way more complex. Yeah. And it's the same with people in the gym. Everybody knows how to become Arnold Schwarzenegger,
right?
But they don't know.
They have
and I think it's the same. All right.
They know. So that's one reason why we simply do not recognize complexity. We do not recognize our own mistakes, right? We think we're doing well, but in reality we are lousy, right? Lousy in cooking. A second one, which I often see, is thinking in reverse. And thinking in reverse, it's as if you're looking at the rear view mirror when you're driving a car and predict what's in front of you simply by looking in your rear view mirror. And this is fine when the road is straight without any obstacles, but when there's a curve, you got a big problem.
Sounds like a very successful strategy.
yeah, exactly. The scientific term is turkey thinking. Turkey thinking. And the reason is the turkey is absolutely convinced that the butcher loves it because it is being taken care of for about 20 months. And all of a sudden, Christmas arrives. And the world of the turkey changes radically, right? And that's thinking in reverse. Past results, also prediction of future results, right? Yeah. And that's very funny. So when I work with companies, when I work with teams, I always make the example of budget. Every August, September in corporate environments, what happens? Well, we make budgets. How do you make budget? Well, we look at the budget of past year, and then we add a couple of %, and then we hope that headquarters will 3 months later it's there. Yeah, and that's thinking in reverse. Yeah, because this is okay until it isn't, right? Yeah, and this is typically how organizations deteriorate. First gradually and then suddenly. Yeah? That's the way it works. First gradually and then suddenly. So that's another thinking.
It kind of accelerates in the end, is what you're saying.
Yeah. All of a sudden you fall off a cliff.
Yeah, there's a tipping point, and then
there's a tipping point. And here's the funny thing about the turkey example. Usually the tipping point is at the height of complacency and satisfaction. Because if you look at a turkey, after 20 months, the day before the butcher arrives, that is the day that the turkey has most of the data that life is good.
Yeah.
So that's the day that he's most satisfied and most sure that things are fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's also a word of warning for organizations. The moment you are satisfied and think life is good, that is the riskiest moment you can have in your career.
How do you keep vigilant?
A couple of ideas. Pre-mortem, we already discussed it. Yeah. That's one thing. The second thing is always focus on making yourself obsolete. Yeah.
Why is that?
If you make yourself obsolete, what happens is you do your thinking for your competition. So you think before the competition starts, thinking about making you obsolete.
You're trying to get in the head of your opponent, and you try to figure out what he would do to eliminate you, and you do that.
Correct. So you move ahead, right? So that's a second strategy to avoid turkey thinking. The third one is zero-based thinking. Knowing what I know right now, what is it that I wouldn't do if I could do it all over again? And then all of a sudden you start to take out stuff which expose you to risk.
Yeah.
Oh. But tapping into that, what did you call it?
Zero-based
thinking. What do you have against the number one?
One-based thinking.
Yeah. You should avoid the number one. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, one. Yeah, that's also what I say. If you look at businesses, one is the most dangerous number for any entrepreneur, any company. I got one vendor. I got one expert. I got one system. Mm-hmm. Yeah, from a risk perspective,
very vulnerable.
That's very vulnerable. Yeah. So the trick is always to have more. Yeah. So that and if you are a business, if you are an entrepreneur, having one is bad. Being the one is very good.
Yeah, that gives you all the power.
And it gives you all the power.
Yeah, vendor locking is a thing.
Yeah, if unlocking a thing. Yeah, so that's the different way of thinking. So that's why
I get it. All right. Nice.
you
All right.
want
So going back to the list of why smart people do stupid things, one that kind of, I don't know, maybe made me project a little was where you speak about the delusions of grandeur or megalomania.
Yeah.
So what exactly does that mean for people?
Yeah, it means also known as the God complex.
Mm-hmm.
And the God complex is to believe I'm good at one thing. Yeah. So these skills automatically translate to other areas as well. Right?
Yeah.
I'm a CEO, so I'm excellent at running a business. Yeah, so that automatically makes me an expert on politics. Or an expert on...
Oh, even entirely different areas.
Different fields.
Ah, right. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So the God complex is delusions of grandeur. What often happens, especially with leaders and when professionals, again, is that they confuse skills with luck. They confuse skills with luck.
Yeah, that really made me think. This podcast. So like, I think I got my stuff down pretty tight, but how much of that actually was luck? Let's take a look at this podcast, for example. We might have the illusion that we're good podcasters, but maybe we were just lucky with the moment we started doing this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, both. I consider myself lucky living in the Netherlands anyway.
Yeah, in 2020.
I mean, we're living in lucky times, you know. So
Sure.
you're a very lucky person compared to the rest of the world.
If you look at guys like Steven Pinker, who wrote a book, Abundance.
Sure.
Yeah. This is the best time to be alive, especially if you're in Holland in 2020 at the height of human civilization as we know it. Yeah, it could be worse.
But it's not always obvious. I always take the example of chimpanzees in a stadium. Imagine you have 1,024 chimpanzees in a stadium, and you do a little game with them. You let them flop coins, right? And if you're ahead as a chimpanzee, you can stay. If it's not ahead, you go. So you let them do flipping, coin flipping. And statistically speaking, after 10 times coin flipping out of the 1,024, only one chimpanzee is left, right?
Yeah.
That's because this is the one who's done heads 10 times in a row.
Yeah.
Now it's pure chance. It's coin flipping. It's
Yeah.
chance. But here's the thing: if you give money to an average person and you say, "Well, here are 1,024 chimpanzees. You have to choose one chimpanzee, which is going to be your coin flipper.
Yeah.
And you can earn more money if the chimpanzee is correct."
Yeah.
Then they all go to that very chimpanzee. Yeah, so we confuse luck and skill. That's a typical example.
Yeah.
All right.
So where else, as an entrepreneur, do you confuse luck and skill?
Yeah, you have
Interesting
you have a lot of metaphors with monkeys.
Yeah,
I like it.
Animals.
They work. I like them. All right. Last sort of bias I would like to talk about is the SETI misconception.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Yeah, the SETI, or what SETI is the search for extraterrestrial life, right?
Yeah, aliens.
Aliens. So we have big telescopes, and there are very smart people looking for extraterrestrial life. With all the tools that we have at hand. There are even people who are specialized in exobiology, right? We've never encountered anything exobiology, but we have people who know everything about it, right? Because they, and that's the point, they absolutely believe in extraterrestrial life. Yeah. So the SETI fallacy is the following, that we listen to the experts based on the fact that they believe something is true, because it's their entire life. It's their entire life.
So which is basically it comes down to if there's a guy in a lab coat saying something and he firmly believes in it, or he seems very convinced because he has sort of an status as an expert, we tend to believe what he believes, although it might be utter nonsense.
The point here indeed is we tend to look for data which confirms our worldview.
It's confirmation bias.
It's confirmation bias. And also in experts, I mean, if you would talk about extraterrestrial life, you would go to these experts and they will tell you it exists. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in this field. Yeah. It doesn't mean it exists. Yeah. So they are experts, but they have confirmation bias. Yeah. So the point about the sati fallacy is whenever you work with experts, make sure that they don't suffer from the confirmation bias.
Yeah, this I get it.
And
Very
the way-
relevant for AI tech guys
Yeah,
at the moment.
absolutely.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
people say AI is going to rule the world, and they are AI experts, they have invested their entire career in AI. Of course, you would say that. Of course, and you might be right. I mean, that's true. Here's the trick: if you really want to test an expert, the trick is what needs to happen in order for you to no longer believe your position. What needs to happen in order for you to no longer believe your position?
It's a deep question.
That's a deep question. And for example,
How would that work with SETI, I wonder? What would need to happen for them not to believe in aliens anymore?
and aliens.
Discover we're under a glass dome,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And if they say there's nothing that can convince me that there are no aliens outside,
Then
you're not dealing with
people.
science, you're dealing with religion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
dogma.
zealots.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dogma. And it's fine, and it can still be right, but this is how you separate the dogmatic from the true experts.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, their ability to come back to what they think they know and change their point of view.
Correct. Correct.
All right. What other fallacies are we missing right now that deserve notice when it comes to high performance?
I think if you talk about the fallacies, the most important we have covered, and typically the one that is 80 or 90% of the issue is the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less we know about the subject, the more we think we know about the subject. So what happens with the Dunning-Kruger effect is that people feel very smug about themselves and are no longer willing to entertain new ideas, go to the next step. Yeah, so they are in love with the status quo, and that is deadly when it comes to high performance. You always want to take the next step. So I think if you talk about those fallacies, that is the most important one, which prevents people, teams, organizations taking the next step.
All right.
So I'm wondering if we talk about companies, you're talking about teams. If you talk about teams, you're talking about individuals. And these individuals all have fears, sabotaging beliefs, and all that stuff. And that really goes to personal development, personal growth. I was wondering, what's your point of view on making the change with the individual? If it goes to sabotaging beliefs and fears and whatever the reasons are, they don't want to change.
Yeah, yeah. If I work with individuals about high performance, when I want to help them, there are 3 steps. The first step is awareness. And we have discussions like this. We connect it to the big goals, to what's in it for me, limiting beliefs. And this is a conversation you typically have. Okay, awareness, wait a second. And I always make the link with, it's not about necessarily about building new stuff. It's about getting rid of existing stuff, which is usually much easier for people.
Unlearning.
Unlearning. The threshold is much lower.
Is it true? Is it easier? Is it easier to unlearn than to learn new things?
In my experience, it's much easier to unlearn than to learn. I give an example. Again, the food example. If you're a smoker, unlearning smoking is not easy. But now with vaping and stuff like that, there are roads of doing that. Much easier to unlearn smoking than to start to try to run a marathon.
Yeah.
So that's my point.
Yeah.
So it's usually about unlearning stuff. Now, so that's one, awareness. The second one is immersion. You need to unlearn habits. These are the habits you need to unlearn, the yes, but, whatever it is. Now we need to immerse yourself in situations that you can practice not having that habit anymore. Yeah? So that's immersion. So how do we set up a system or process that you are immersed there? And the third one is repetition. Repetition. Over and over and over again. It takes 21 days to build a new habit.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is the lowest estimate.
Yeah,
Under
the
66 days is
Right.
also out there.
Yeah, it's not a very complicated habit. The easy habits and difficult habits are.
21 days seems manageable, yeah.
I give you an example. If you move into a new home, it will take you 21 days before your hand automatically finds light switches in your home, right? That's the way it works.
Yeah.
So you start building habits. And I got a little trick of building habits. It's called the paperclip trick. I give them 5 paper clips, and they put it in the left pocket. And every time they don't show that habit, well,
when they should have
show them, but they don't show it. Yeah. I haven't said yes, but I was urged to. But okay, excellent. Then paperclip moves from left pocket to right pocket, right? And the rule is very simple: head will not hit pillow until and unless 5 paperclips are in the right pocket. Yeah, every single day. Yeah? So what happens is that people are starting to train that new habit. And if you hang on the 21 days, they've trained this habit for more than 100 times. All of a sudden, it becomes subconscious.
I'm trying to think of situations where people can't go to sleep because it's impossible to get the last paperclip into the pocket. It's like, no one's awake anymore. I can't do this.
Right. Yeah. But it helps to they actively look for environments where they practice this, and that's what you want to have.
I like it.
Yeah. If you want to accelerate this, then don't use paperclips, but use candies. That's a little
reward.
Reward.
I use doorways as an anchor. Every time I enter a door, I try to practice something.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a great trigger. Yeah. Building triggers in your life.
What have you been practicing? Is this why you're tap dancing whenever you enter a new room?
One of the few habits. Yeah. No, just try to be, for example, be more compassionate or be more aware of what I'm thinking. Or in the morning, like you write your goals, but in the morning I take notice of how I feel and how I want to feel. And I truly believe that if you be aware of how you want to feel and just make that connection every time you walk into a door, like, hey, am I feeling what I want to feel? No, yes, no, and just try to stay. I actually try to change my state of being.
It reminds me of that if-then.
Yeah, it's an anchor.
Loop.
It's just an
if-then
anchor.
loop.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Paul Smith that taught us about that?
About special forces.
Yeah, exactly.
If this goes
you want
wrong,
to do something, then you have to link it to something you're already doing, or if you want to unlearn something, you got to replace it with something new that you do.
Yeah. Excellent approach. Approach.
Yeah. If-then.
If-then. Yeah.
I like it. All right. We were talking about individuals, and one of the things that maybe is not the same as performance, but surely ties into this, is productivity. And I saw a couple of things that I use myself that I like a lot, but I also saw a couple of new things that I want to ask you about. But the first thing I would like to know about when it comes to productivity is your use of paper, pen and paper. I saw things about free notes. I saw mind mapping, Cornell notes, which I didn't know about. I Googled. I like it. I think I want to learn it. But can you speak a little to that?
Yeah. One of the parts in my book is about productivity, and what I found is there are moments that it's better to use pen and paper. Something happens when you have a pencil in your hand.
Do you know what it is?
For me, it's unclear. I know that it works, so I'm very pragmatic. I do it, and there is some research. Yeah, it's about mind mapping. If you look at the mind map research, also from a brain perspective, there are some explanations what happens if you work with different colors, different associations. David Allen talks about that. A lot. But pen and paper for me is a crucial tool. A crucial tool for productivity. Yeah? So in my book, I describe a couple of things that work for me. Now what's important here is if you look at productivity, this is not a system but a menu. And what I mean with a system means these are the 100 steps, and if you miss step 79, unfortunately it's not going to work. That's a system. A menu is these are 100 things that you can do. Pick the 2 or 3 things that work for you, test it, and then apply it. And and if you talk about high performance, if you talk about pen and paper, these examples, in reality, it's about a menu. It's about a menu, never a system. These are the 100 steps I need to take. No, the menu, the 2 or 3 things that you need to do. So pen and paper, very important for me to do my thinking, to write down stuff, get it out of my system. The getting things done approach. Never keep it in your brain, because that's not the place where you need to store ideas.
And that's what you meant with portable memory as well.
And that's portable memory. Store it at a different place where you can review the ideas.
Yeah. I've been thinking about what it is about writing with pen and paper that makes it do what it does. And I think one aspect of it is because you're a fast thinker and fast talker as well. I think you type at the same pace.
Right.
If I start writing down with pen and paper, it kind of slows down. So I think more about what I do. And I also think there's an aspect, but this might be, I don't know, nonsense, but if you type something, you can delete it, which you know the moment you type it. If I type something, it's gone with a swish of my mouse and a hit of the delete button.
Right.
This just, unless I use Tipex, it just stays there.
Right.
So I'm more conscious about what I write down, how I draw it. More attention goes into it. And the fact that I give more attention to it kind of makes something happen where I either remember it better or I integrate what I wrote down. It's the same when you use... Did you ever make cheat notes for a certain class?
Sure. Probably.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, did you really need it once you made it?
Sometimes,
No.
but in general, yeah.
At least my experience is every time I used the cheat notes, the moment I made them, I wrote them down in very small letters that took so much attention and focus that I remembered so well what I wrote down, I didn't need them anymore.
Yeah.
For my last college exams, I was using computer notes and made them so small that like a full A4 pager went like this. And
Yeah.
I couldn't
Font
remember.
size minus
couldn't
2.
remember those ones, but I see what you mean. Yeah, I think the pen and paper thing is a cultural thing. It's been done for hundreds of years already, and I truly believe that it's more of an ingrained thing in our DNA, thinking, writing. I don't know.
Do you ever have this feeling sometimes? I have it when I work in this book. Sometimes I wrote stuff down and I look at the page and the composition, I'm like, wow, this is a nicely written on page.
Yeah.
The handwriting is nice. There's a good spacing. I like the little drawings that I made. And sometimes you can look back at that and you can feel great. Like, this is nice.
It's a work of art, right?
Yeah, this, what do you call it? Ambacht? Yeah.
Imagine writing a book 300-400 years ago.
Yeah, just doing that by
It's
hand.
different,
and
man.
make-
It's a different piece of cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a monk's work. They don't call it that for nothing.
Yeah, definitely. It's a life work. Could be a life work.
All right. One final question I have when it comes to productivity, and it's a little trick that I use myself as well, is the use of the unconscious brain. Because there's a lot of problem-solving capability and capacity in other places than the front side of your head, which you can just feed problems, come back to later, and they have answers, which is very efficient if you think about it.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
First of all, there's indeed a split between the conscious and the unconscious or the subconscious brain, and the trick, if you want to engage in creativity, the trick is to engage the subconscious, the thing that works 24 hours a day at the background. Works for you. Now, how do you engage the subconscious? There are a couple of techniques that I found work like a charm. The first technique is the 10 goal exercise. I discussed it already. Every day write down the top 10 goals that you want to achieve half a year to a year from now, as if you already achieved those goals. Because what happens is that the subconscious cannot distinguish between a vision and reality. Yeah, so there's a disconnect between the two, and it starts to work on making the two pictures connect. And it's through an organ, it's called the reticular activating system, a little pinky in the brain, which is the gateway between the conscious and the subconscious. Now, if you start to do the 10 goal exercise, your reticular activating system is being activated to find people, ideas, and circumstances which will help you to achieve your goals, which will help you to overcome the cognitive dissonance in your brain.
Which I think is the psychological explanation for something that people call the law of attraction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What happens, the world doesn't change. I mean, if you write down the goals, the world itself doesn't change. What changes is the way you interact with the world. That is what changes.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you see stuff you wouldn't see before,
Yeah.
because it has emotional content.
If you ever looked for a new car, you know exactly what we're talking about right now.
Exactly. But our mind works like a massive filter. If you are at a party, big party, and somewhere in the corner someone mentions your name, very busy, but you immediately hear it.
Yeah.
So that's the subconscious filter. Yeah. So 10 goal exercise, very powerful to bring it in the subconscious part of your brain. The second way I use the subconscious part of the brain is and I mentioned the 20-way. It's called the 20-way exercise. And the 20-way exercise is you write down a problem. How can I, for example, grow my business while at the same time work less? And that's typically a good question. How can I, at the same time? And then you force yourself to write down 20 ideas. 20 ideas. And that's a 20-way exercise. Creativity will be in the last part, because then you really have to think.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to enhance the 20-way exercise, you write down that question the evening before. Tomorrow I'm going to think of this question.
Yeah.
And you go to sleep, and when you wake up, you already have lots of ideas. Yep, this is what I'm going to write down. So this is how you can use the subconscious to put it in your head. Here's the third thing, and that is to set apart thinking time. Thinking time. And what it means is to spend at least half an hour every single day to engage in the activity of deep thinking. Deep thinking. And what is deep thinking? Deep thinking is pen and paper, nothing which disturbs you, no computer, no music, nothing at all. Just deep thinking about the business, about an issue, about the things that you want to think about. Yeah, and write stuff down. Yeah? Use an egg timer or use whatever it is, but engage at least half an hour in deep thinking, because this is how you engage other parts of the brain. Now, here's a shocking statistic. In the past years, I've worked with hundreds of professionals, leaders, executives, and I always ask them one question: when was the last time you engaged in deep thinking?
Mm-hmm.
And there are maybe one or two who tell me, well, last month I had a moment to do exactly that. And the rest is just running like a little hamster in the hamster wheel. All the time, all the time, all the time. So the big secret of high performance is to simply take time to think. Deep thinking. Build a habit of deep thinking.
And is this because by doing so you train your brain to actually... Because deep thinking is painful. It's not comfortable.
No.
And are you conditioning yourself to be able to go through that discomfort?
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing with that exercise?
Yeah, but what happens is the first time you do deep thinking, after 5 minutes you say, well, what am I doing? Let's
home.
go back to mail. I'm done. And you feel very exhausted. But brain is not a muscle, but it operates like a muscle. The more we exercise the brain, the easier it is for the brain to deliver. So you will become smarter with deep thinking. That's the way it works.
I tried to practice this in my car, thinking about a problem, which is not the best place to do it because you're driving a car as well.
But you're doing that on autopilot anyway.
That's kind of on autopilot, yeah. But I try to stay away from podcasts and videos and WhatsApping, which I used to do. I mean,
the only problem with doing it in the car, though, for me would be that I would get all these ideas, which I wouldn't want to lose.
Well, the things that are really important will stick anyway.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because I've lost ideas that will save this planet.
Then it wasn't important enough.
All right.
That's my.
How do you feel about that?
The trick is to have a system to capture ideas. That's if you can write down the little notebook, that's fine. If you're in a car, you might use a
brain task.
And the third trick is a mental technique. It's called locus. The Romans were very good at it. When they had to give a speech of 3 hours, what they envisioned themselves walking through their house.
Yeah, right? I heard about that.
And they know the house very well. So with everything that they saw, they connected to something else. Yeah. Right? So if you got an idea, you have no opportunity to capture the idea. Use the locus technique. Imagine your house, the first thing you will see in your house, and connect these ideas to the first thing you see. Yeah. And then put it out of your head. Yeah, so once you enter your house, you see the thing, idea comes back.
I create my speeches with icons. So I'm building this system of stories because I have a lot of stories when I'm on stage. And the story has an icon or a picture. So when somebody asks me like, hey, you have to do a 30-minute speech, I just create 5 icons. So this is the opening. These are the 3 points, the 3 stories that I want to tell. Mentally, yeah. No. I have them on my presentation here. But when I prepare the speech, I draw the icons, and I just look at 5 icons and maybe some little text with it, and I know the whole story because I don't want to do everything. Everything in my head and
smart
every sentence and stuff because I know the story, and I know the story that I can tell the story within 3 minutes or in 10 minutes, and depending on the time. And that, I got this tip from a public speaking trainer who does a lot of things from Mind Valley as well.
Right.
And it really worked well for me because he can ask. No, it's an American person, Eric. But somebody can ask me to go on stage unprepared and ask me to do a 20-minute speech. Give me 10 minutes, I can prepare it and I can do it.
And you only need your symbols to do
I only need my symbols.
It reminds me of sigils.
But you have to practice the stories. And for me, being a professional speaker, wanting to become a very good professional speaker, the art of storytelling and repeating the story and making it, that's the art for me. That's the practice.
What's it called? What's that memory? It's like a little trick. Well, basically making sort of shortcuts in your brain with these symbols that just tie into a certain part of your memory, and you just can shortcut to it.
Probably. Yeah, I think in a way. But basically, I'm creating a database of stories, and every story has a purpose. Why do you tell the story? And it talks about leadership or about vision or about depression or whatever,
Yeah.
And then just whatever the subject is, I can choose of all these stories, and I just pick a few stories, and then I create a new story. So it's very easy for me later on. For now already, it's easier for me to when a company hires me and we have a subject, and it's about making choices. Then 5 stories pop up, and probably 10 stories. I can look it up in my database of stories.
I got to learn your symbols, man. Mess with you when you do speeches. Just make a sign on the back.
Yeah, because
switches to a different story.
I've tried the walking through your house stuff, but I have too many stories. So
your house is not big enough.
To be honest, sometimes you capture a technique and then you think, it's probably a really good one. And then you try it, and for some reason it doesn't work. And this one just fits the bill. It fits my brain. It fits my chemistry, and it works. Well,
I like it, man.
Yeah, I have one more question about because we kind of have to round up. I think
time flew again.
Yeah. So high performance and family life, because we can have all the high performance that we want at work and stuff, but if home base is not happy, then there's no high performance either.
I think it's mutually exclusive, man.
What do you advise executives and directors about this?
I advise exactly your point, that the home base is a very important one to charge the batteries. I got a family, my wife, two children, and I know if home base is off, then I need to work hard in order to bring myself to a high performance state.
Yeah.
Now, there are moments that the home base is off. Children get ill, and so that happens. So it is important to have technique systems to ensure that regardless of what happens, if you have to deliver, you deliver, right? It's important to have that. The other thing is to what I found is to use some of the ideas that we've discussed here for yourself, but with your wife and children sparingly. Don't go overboard. They are not your project, right? So and that's important because that relationship is not about high performance, but it's about mutual understanding. It's about energy. It's about happiness, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different setting. So I tend to be always hesitant to use all these ideas on my wife and my children. Though what I do is that I take out a couple of things which I think are very important to manage home life. And the first one is the application for raising kids. My son is 12, my daughter is 9. A great age gives you a lot of energy. The trick of raising kids is to give them as few rules as possible and hold them strictly to the rules. Right?
Consistency.
Yeah, very, very consistent. And that's also a thing that if I work with leaders, the thing that they need to take out, strategic quitting, is the enormous amount of rules they have.
Yeah.
Cut the enormous amount of rules and focus on true things that matter. That's the boundary. And have a conversation with your team. You have all the freedom to do what it takes, provided that.
Yeah.
And then you describe the boundaries. Provided that if you see you go over budget, you come to me. provided that the people you work with don't end up home sick.
Yeah.
Provided that you stay with a legal and moral framework, right?
Yeah.
And once you're very clear about that, all of a sudden you can give them a lot of freedom.
Yeah,
And
it's autonomous.
it's autonomous. You,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get them
yeah.
full autonomy, but you're also very clear. And now I want to know. And now I want to know. So I try to use that. I try to use that rule as well with my children. Children, you've all the freedom to do what it takes, unless.
What are a few of the rules?
Here's a few rules.
In the Rulkens
when you
house.
when you come home directly. Yeah, don't stay somewhere where I don't know where you are. Right.
No
okay.
loitering.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
loitering. No loitering. Yeah, that's it. So that's a very important rule. And another important rule is we go to bed every day at the same time.
Yeah.
Because that creates sleeping habits, which is very important for children.
Yeah.
So those are typical rules. So that's my application. So that's one. The second application is the silver rule. Is a silver rule. And the silver rule is the cousin of the golden rule. Golden rule is do to others what you like others to do to you. The silver rule is don't do to others what you don't want others to do to you. Yeah? And for me, the silver rule is more important than the golden rule because it tells you, it gives you empathy. Yeah, it gives you empathy in the sense, if I set this rule for people. And imagine I got a boss and I got this rule. Would I be happy? And if the answer is no, then I shouldn't do that for other people as well.
The golden rule is more self-centered.
More self-centered. But the silver rule is, in my opinion, much more important. And this also, again, talking about the opposite. The opposite of things is often more important than what it is.
Well, here's a bold suggestion. Why not turn it around? Why not make the silver rule the golden rule and
We do platinum. The thinking, right?
platinum, diamond, adamantite, whatever.
That's the way it works. That's the way. So that's the second thing, right? So always be aware. Hey, the rules that I give, do they adhere to the silver rule? Right. And then the third thing is that's something we spoke. It's about strategic quitting. That when I look at my family and I look at the things. What are the things activities we may be doing which have an event horizon, an uncle point, where all of a sudden the family is over for whatever reason, right? We are broke or no longer together or whatever, and do whatever it takes to minimize those things.
Yeah.
Right. I give you an example. The people love skiing. I'm lousy at skiing, and for me, skiing is an event horizon. Things can go horribly wrong. So I will never engage in skiing, and my family will also never engage in skiing. So that's a very simple rule.
You're missing out. You're missing out on adventure.
I know.
I think it's very smart. No, it's very smart. I have the same with skydiving. No way, no how. Are you stupid? All right. One question, because that triggered me. You said something about the home base being important. Sometimes the home base is off. I've been on stage where I had a fight with my girlfriend that affected my performance. You said you had tricks to prevent that.
Yep.
What are the tricks?
Yeah. Here's the trick. The first trick is preparation. If you are on stage, I speak a lot. If I have prepared well, I can always rely on my preparation to pull me through. So I never wing things, even if it might be possible. Yeah, I know the subject, I wing it. No, because if I'm not at peak performance, winging it will really be winging it, and they will clip my wings, right? So the preparation, that's one thing.
People can tell.
Yeah, people can tell.
Yeah.
So always be prepared. The second thing is take as much stress out of the engagement.
You mean the talking
The
engagement
talking.
for this instance? Yeah.
If we talk about talking, take as much stress out of the engagement. I remember I had last year I had a day where I had 3 speaking engagements. One in Amsterdam, then the next one in Den Bosch, and the next one in Venlo, right? And it was
Nice
possible.
geographic spread.
Nice geographic spread. So-
With a helicopter.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you need a helicopter, man.
And it was possible, right? And I could envision myself by car moving from one place to another place to another place. But then I realized if I do this by car, I arrive not in my peak performance state there. So I started to do my 20-way exercise. What is it I can do to enjoy the engagement and take out stress? And then I realized, well, what if I rent a taxi for the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a chauffeur driving me the entire day.
Student driver.
A student driver.
way
And
more-
it was perfect. It took all the stress out of the system. Yeah. So that's for me important. I got a checklist to take out all the stress. With arrival, I arrive way in time. I never rely on connections. I never rely on short night sleeps, because if that happens, I won't do it. Right. So that helps me to be in peak performance. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing, if I know myself, if I'm off, I'm not in the moment. I become very short. I become less empathetic, less engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So whenever I run the risk of being in an off state, I picture wild success. I do the stuff, I picture wild success, because again, the subconscious cannot distinguish between reality and
Imagination.
Mm-hmm. And once I got this picture in my mind, this is how I raise my energy and make sure that my energy is good enough for the moment. Mm-hmm. Now, that last one has a risk, because once you're done, your battery is completely drained. Yes. It does something with your...
It's very expensive. Yeah.
Very expensive, but if it has to be, it has to be. It's the same with having a flu. In my line of work, your line of work, I mean, having a flu, not being there is not an option.
Yeah.
You have to be there.
Yeah.
Right? And even if you're there, all right, we take the medicine, we imagine success, we drain the battery, but then make sure we recover afterwards. So take recovery time to make that happen. So those are my three steps.
Sometimes you power through.
Yeah. It happens. Yeah, that's life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you ever had to power through?
Definitely, yeah. When I came out of the jungle after a long while, I had what's it called? Epstein Barr virus.
I know it, man.
Ziekte van Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer disease.
Yeah.
And basically they gave me a heads up 2 days before a speaking gig. And you can see the videos on YouTube where my face is just all swollen, my lymphs are swollen. Well, I just went there. I took a hotel, take out stress, no driving and stuff.
Yeah, smart.
Went up stage, did nice. Wasn't one of my best performances. And then I went back home and I just told them like, "Hey, I'm on stage with Pfeiffer, but it's okay."
Yeah, I'm here.
And last week I had to power through with what's a keelontsteking in Engels?
Throat infection.
Throat
throat
infection.
infection,
Yeah. I trained for 8 months to participate in the first selection phase of the Dutch Special Forces, and then in the morning I woke up with a throat infection.
Yeah.
So I just asked for like a strip of aspirins, and I powered through. But after the first day, I didn't feel my body anyway.
I was just about to say, let's be honest, man. Even with throat infection or not, that would have been a thing you needed to power through anyway. So
I didn't feel my body and my mind anymore. So it's I think, and there's a personal opinion in canceling events like that because you are sick or have the flu. Like in the last 10 years, I mean, it hasn't happened that I canceled something important because I was ill or something, or I don't like it. And I don't like it when co-workers or employees do it. But that's my opinion. No, I should have done it more often. Just stay at home and recover. But
yeah, maybe a good final topic to leave off on, because I think that's one of the most underestimated factors in high performance: rest, recovery. Got any wise words regarding to that?
Well, it's one of the most important topics.
Yeah.
Again, your ability to recover, to charge the batteries, determines your performance. Also here, and when I talk about high performance, I always think about rituals, how to recover. A ritual for me to recover is thinking time. Already mentioned it. Thinking time for me is now a recovery mechanism. It's no longer hard to do it, but it's my little dome of silence where I do my thing. Right, that's recovery.
Mental oasis.
The mental oasis. Sleep for me is also important. I'm very regular in sleep. Very regular in sleep because I need to sleep, and I'm at peak performance when I sleep well. So that's very fine. And there's no need for me to jeopardize the sleep.
What's your sweet spot in hours, sleep-wise?
Sleep is between 7 and 8 hours.
All right.
I go to bed at 10. I wake up 5:36.
All right.
Like that.
Yeah.
And then I have typically my golden hours, the hours that I'm most productive. For me, it's between 7 and 10 in the morning. And that's where I do my deep thinking, my creative thinking, the thing that I want to do.
Ignore your family.
Yeah, but they have their own rituals, so I'm not worried about it. We build that system.
They know better, yeah.
And then every morning I exercise. I got exercise equipment at home, so I don't have to go somewhere. So it's very easy, low threshold to do what needs to be done, to be in peak shape. And then look at food. It's also important for me to focus on the food that energizes you, right? And usually that's not weird processed food, but it's something else. So I try to be deliberate in that. And sometimes you do stuff that's okay, but if it is a consistent habit, then I'll immediately feel the energy low.
Yeah.
So I've built rituals how to recover. Now, the practical application for high performance individuals and teams, of course, next to the rituals, is in their work environment, is the mental focus. How can I do the same amount of work in half of the time?
Yeah,
that's an interesting focus. Because what happens if you start to focus on that one, then all of a sudden you become much more efficient. You see ways in doing stuff. You see how to do strategic quitting, and all of a sudden you have time left. Now, the biggest mistake is to use this time left to start to run faster in your hamster wheel. More meetings. No. Once you created this time, then use the time to do deep thinking, to recover, to make sure you exercise. So do the things that will help you for the future high performance.
How much of doing, because you probably thought about this as a knowledge worker, how to do the same amount of work in half the time, how much of that is effort intensity and how much of that is simply the order in which you do things? So your process, your workflow. So what's usually the answer to that? Because I know people, hey man, if you would have typed at least twice as fast, then you can do the same amount of work in half the time. But sometimes it's also the way that stuff gets done is so very inefficient because of legacy or whatever. And if you take, like, software development is a great example of this. We used to do waterfall. You tell us what you want, we build it, we come back, we show it to you, you're disappointed. And then we learned, well, maybe if you take out the showing it at the end part and you take it to the front and you repeat it a couple of times, the result gets massively better. So that's a great example of how the order of certain steps make the process more efficient. But sometimes it's also a factor of, we got to make sure we make more reps per minute.
Yeah. I think that's all true. If you look at work from a tactical and operational level, here's the strategic answer to your question. The strategic answer is to move to a place where they love your work.
Move to a place where they
Move to a place where they love your work.
All right.
Where your talents and skill are maximized. I read an interview with the chief technology officer of Microsoft a couple of years ago, and he said something interesting. He said, if you look at our programmers, software developers, the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of all our developers, they are up to 1,000 times more efficient than the average program developer we have in Microsoft. And what he basically told us is, if you look at Microsoft, thousands of program developers, software developers, but there are maybe 10 which really matter, and the rest is fluff, right?
They just do
They just do their coding work, and that's all fine.
Coding monkeys.
Yeah, coding monkeys.
Those are the coding monkeys, aren't these other guys just called the architects?
Probably in that world, that's true. Now, what happens with those 10 people? They do the work they love, no doubt. Otherwise, they wouldn't be that productive. And they are at a place where they are being loved. They love their work, so they are maximized in maximum productive. And that's the strategic thinking. If you see, I want to become more productive, save more time, then all these tactics will work. But the strategic question is, what is it that I do, which is the place where I love my work, the thing that I love to do, the highest and best use of your time. And then all of a sudden finding time is no longer an issue.
Nice, interesting. But what if, And then I think we can close this podcast. Something we started about when we mentioned it. I saw you light up because you have an opinion on this. What if the place they love your work is a place where they use an open office? Because I have an opinion on open offices, man. Deaf to open offices.
Yeah. Well, this is typically a management fad, and we see now and then that's a bit of a disaster. If you have a place with an open office, then there are a couple of things. Homework looks very, working from home looks very interesting. Invest in noise cancelling headphones. That's also very interesting to do. And the other thing is think outside the box. What can you do to work at night and sleep during the day, for instance? So shift your schedule that you can work in a more productive environment, which will help you to achieve success. If this all fails and you see your productivity is not the way you want it to be, realize some coasts are made for shipwreck. Some coasts are made for shipwreck, so you cannot win. And then it's time to move to a place where they love your work.
To greener pastures. Right. Yeah, I get it. I have a fourth solution, by the way, for this problem. If you have to work in open offices, just find a hiding spot because usually the companies that use an open office are very big, have multiple levels, and there's always a table somewhere or another level where you can hide. I used to have a job that had an office like that. It was located in an old bank building, which had a vault, which held the servers. I spent a lot of time there.
It's the most valuable place.
It's the most valuable place. Isolation, man. Gets you into flow.
All right, Paul. Thanks for being here. And you're going to publish a new book, right, in the end of the year. What's it all about? What's it going to be about?
This is the extension of strategic quitting. This book is about taking away stuff in order to take the next step to high performance. And it's a summary, also description, a couple of things that we have discussed. But also from the field, in my work in the field. What is the stuff, the practical stuff that works? If you want to take the next step, what is the stuff that works? Again, it's an actionable book. That's what I like. I like to write. I like to write action, but also about stuff that I have seen that works. Yeah. So I'm a practitioner from that perspective. Yeah. So it is coming.
Cool.
I like it, man.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the most information-dense podcasts we ever recorded. I'm going to be listening to this one a couple of times.
Yeah, this is David Allen level. So, that's a compliment for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I wish you the best of luck in your work. Whenever you have something new, be welcome and share the news.
Yes.
Excellent.
Hit us up.
Excellent. Great being here and wonderful to have a podcast like this. Talk about this. Time is flying when you're having fun.
Yeah,
it is.
Right.
It is.
Thanks.
All right,
listeners. Thanks, and see you at the next podcast.
Until the next one.